Chapter 19. Then we'll support you in that too, Fred said gravely, getting a nod from his brother. If they told Harry to stop it, and then one of their parents got killed for not walking away, they would never be able to forgive themselves. In that moment, they truly understood the complete mind fuck that real-time travel could be. How difficult every decision was. Harry thought for a minute before asking, "Do you guys remember mine and Ron's first year? Going to the station?" "Of course we do. That was the year that Mum got into the cooking sherry or something," Fred laughed. Too right. The way she was talking so loud in the middle of the Muggle side acting like she forgot. Where? George trailed off as it dawned on him. It was a setup, wasn't it, for you? I don't know. That's why I was asking. I mean, do you normally go a different way to the station, and there was some reason you couldn't that time? Or was she playing some kind of remembering game with Ginny? No, that's the way we always go. And given the statute of secrecy that she was blatantly breaking, playing that kind of game with Ginny would be unless she was trying to get someone's attention, Fred sighed. I hope you know, Harry, that we had nothing to do with any of that. Our friendship with you is not a setup or a trick or anything. Please believe that, George said earnestly. I believe you, Harry said honestly. If I thought otherwise, I would never have given up my secrets. No, Ron and Hermione tell the headmaster and your mother everything I say and do, that much I'm sure of. I'm sorry, Harry, Fred said sadly before he stiffened and his eyes went wide. He looked at George. You don't think? George had the same reaction and both twins also had a trace of fear in their eyes. I hope not. Maybe we're just jumping at shadows. Maybe, George said, clearly not convinced. Should we? He gestured at Harry. I think we have to, Fred nodded. What? Harry asked worriedly. Okay, here's the thing. We don't know anything and maybe we're just being paranoid. But with the whole setup and the way Ron is spying on you, we've been going on a lot of trips since you started Hogwarts. Trips that we never would have been able to afford before. And yeah, that one year we won the 1,000 galleon draw. But that trip cost a lot more than that for all of us. Plus staying at the Leaky for a few days afterwards. Not to mention the better robes and new books. And Ron even got a new wand. You think your parents might be stealing from me, Harry said with a frown. If they are its mum, Dad would never. But we can't be sure about her. And we know she has your key. We'd hate to accuse her if it isn't true, though. But we'd hate even more for it to be true. If it is, we swear we'll pay you back every penny. No, Harry cut them off and shook his head. You two don't owe me anything, period. If your mother is stealing from me, there's nothing I can do about it until Dumbledore is gone and I'm free to visit the bank anyway, so we might as well not worry about it right now. We could sneak you out to the bank. Get your keys recalled. No, thank you guys, but no. I need Dumbledore to keep thinking that he has me where he wants me, that I'm nice and gullible and pliant. She couldn't possibly access more than my trust vault anyway, and neither can Dumbledore. I have more than I'll ever need, especially once I get access to the family vault a few months after Dumbledore's death. As long as I have enough for school supplies until then, she can take whatever she wants and then be out of my life. Fred and George traded looks and had a silent conversation before turning back to Harry. If that's the way you want to play it. But if we are right, we'll be disowning ourselves as soon as the old goat cocks it. She'll be out of our life, too. We don't abide thieves. Especially not from someone who's as good as family. If that's your decision, I won't argue, but know that you don't have to, that I'll still trust you two either way. You don't have to lose your family for my sake. It's not for your sake. It's for our conscience, George told him. But we still don't know what the truth is on that, so as Harrikin said we should just drop it for now, Fred added. Oh, but that does remind me of something else I need from you too. First, I need you to find a temporary sterility spell that can be reversed later on. If they had any idea that he was slipping out of their grasp, who knew what they might do to trap him? I'm not sure one exists, but we'll either find one or make one, George told him. Also, as soon as Dumbledore dies, within a day or two, I need you to take me to the infirmary and have me flushed for love potions, Harry said seriously. Both twins' eyes widened at that, and neither of them asked the obvious question. They had a pretty good idea, but they didn't want confirmation. Even if they would get confirmation by who he was dating at the time. They'd had enough for the moment, though. Fred still had to ask. Last time, potion, yes. But I didn't sleep with the girl. I just don't want to take the chance if they notice something and decide I need to be more trapped. He wasn't going to tell them who unless they specifically asked, and he noticed that they weren't doing so. "Don't worry, Harrikins. We won't let you down," George swore. The idea of Harry dating someone under a love potion was sickening, but they knew that it had to happen. If she slept with him that way, though, if she took his virginity while he was drugged, he didn't care who it was. She would die. "Thank you, guys. Really. I feel a lot better knowing you have my back," Harry said, relieved. That had been one of his greatest fears of this timeline. "It sounds like the other you is back now, so we should get going. Now that we know where you're hanging out, though, we can come keep you company during your long, lonely days," Fred said dramatically. Harry laughed. "No explosions, though. We have to keep quiet up here." "Always tying our hands," George joked and reached over to ruffle Harry's hair on the way out. They made it down just as the news was spreading about Harry getting off, and they gave a token cheer along with the rest before everyone got back to what they were doing, and Ron and Hermione dragged Harry off. At least now they knew why he'd forgiven them so easily a few days after he got there. They were stuck cleaning for the rest of the day now that their mother wasn't as distracted anymore, but they were able to slip away after dinner and headed back up to Harry's hidey hole. "So what should we know about this upcoming school year? The defense teacher is a sadistic bitch. Avoid detentions with her as much as you can. She has people writing lines with a blood quill. And Dumbledore and McGonagall let her get away with it," Fred asked incredulously. "Unfortunately, and I doubt I'll be able to avoid it. I'm the one she really has it out for." "Oh, she'll get hers. Definitely. And you two do a wonderful job of it too," Harry laughed. "I'll never forget the spectacle it made. If only we had access to a pensive." "We'll see what we can work out," George promised. He wanted to see that too. "Also, you should know that I'll be taking lessons with Katie Bell this year, learning all the pureblood lord things that I should have been raised with. We'll be pretending to date to cover the lessons, but we'll be keeping it quiet unless it becomes necessary. Anytime you need a distraction or an alibi, let us know," Fred nodded. "Everything else you can just see when it happens," Harry told them, and they both agreed to that, and then moved on to more fun stuff, talking about their pranks and the products they were developing and how much fun they would have in their last year. Harry kept quiet about the Christmas present he was going to give them. Last time he'd given it for their birthday on April 1st, but they would get it early this year. The deed to 93 Diagon Alley. They'd kept it secret where it came from last time, and they would this time too. Chapter 20. Harry let Tom know that the twins were in on the secret and helping him cover in the next letter, and the return letter started out scathing, berating Harry about letting down his guard and getting sloppy and how lucky he was that the people that found him out seemed to be trustworthy, but he wasn't convinced. They were still Weasleys after all, but at least he'd been smart enough to get a vow. The letter after that was much better, and Tom said that he was glad that Harry had people to help him out and keep him out of trouble, but that if they betrayed them, Tom would kill them slowly. Since Tom wrote in Parseltongue, Harry had to read the twins the pertinent parts of the letters, and they all got a chuckle from the threats and how protective Tom seemed to be of Harry. That also helped them keep up to date on the ideas the two were throwing back and forth on the future of the wizarding world and how to run the war. The fact that Voldemort was at least willing to hear their ideas surprised the twins greatly and made them much more sure that they chose the correct side. Dumbledore wouldn't hear any ideas but his own. The twins, being of age, refused to let themselves be trapped in the house, and thus were the perfect agents to take care of Harry's shopping. Mrs. Weasley had picked up all his school supplies, not noticing the twins frown when that was announced, but there were a few other things Harry wanted. He wasn't about to send the twins to Knockturn Alley, but he did want some books on runes and arithmancy now that he'd read so much about how important they were. He was wishing that he'd taken those two subjects in third year, but supposed that he wouldn't have been allowed to anyway. At least he would be able to take the newts in them if he could catch up fast enough. Given that he would have to keep his grades from getting too high and had studied the next 2 years already, he was relatively certain he could keep up, and that was even without the time turner. Actually, on second thought, the time turner would probably be necessary. Hermione and Ron would notice him reading unapproved books. If all went according to plan, he could take his owls at the ministry the summer before his 7th year after Dumbledore's death, and then the newts on schedule. The rest of the summer went by fast. Harry's day off. The twins always came by after dinner and spent a few hours with him, and they were easily becoming his best friends. So much so that they decided to do the same at Hogwarts. Steal time with the Time Turner just as he would steal time with Katie and probably Luna the same way. With any luck, they wouldn't even need the cover story. The biggest problem there would be the question of whether to bring Lee in on the Time Turner part of the secret. The rest the twins didn't even bother suggesting. Katie would have to know about the Time Turner, and Luna probably already knew. They still hadn't come to a conclusion on Lee by the time they had to catch the express on September 1st. They would just play it by ear. Once on the train, Fred and George went to find their own friends, of course, while Ron kicked Ginny out. Harry found Neville and Luna walking by, though, and invited them to join, getting odd looks from Ron and Hermione. "Neville, I get by why loony," Ron asked distastefully, thankfully before they got there. "I met Lun/a// at the end of last year. She's nice," Harry shrugged. "Besides, you two are going to be at the prefect meeting and doing rounds for most of the train ride anyway," he pointed out. Unlike last time around, he wasn't the slightest bit jealous about Ron being prefect. He didn't need the hassle. No sooner than Neville and Luna arrived, Ron and Hermione had to go before they were late. Harry enjoyed most of the ride in the absence of his minders and got an early start on trying to build Neville's confidence. Luna, of course, caught on to what he was doing and joined in with her own unique way. It was only the last couple hours when Ron and Hermione rejoined them ranting about Malfoy and how unfair it was that he was a prefect and how he was already abusing it. Harry resisted the urge to roll his eyes and participated as expected. After seeing what he was reduced to during the war, it was hard for Harry to hate him anymore. Maybe after Dumbledore was gone, he could try and reach a hand out in friendship again. Once they were back at Hogwarts, Harry didn't use the Time Turner nearly as much as before. He had caught up on all the books that Tom wanted him to read, plus a few more he'd found in the Black Library. Spending every other day hiding and doing next to nothing but studying was already getting old. He redid 1 full day a week to keep up with his supplemental studies for runes and arithmancy, and then 2 hours twice a week for the lessons with Katie. The twins would abduct him and turn the Time Turner at random times, and apparently planned it because they were always waiting for him when it stopped spinning. Usually in the abandoned classroom that they'd apparently secured a long time ago for their inventing. As Harry expected, Umbridge had it out for him. He only spoke out when he noticed the look from Hermione that said that he better do something about the tripe she was spewing, but even when he didn't, he ended up with detention for the most minor offenses. Unlike last time, Fred and George started abducting him right afterwards and taking him to their lab to put the Murtlap essence on his hand. They'd been the ones to tell Hermione about it last time around, so he wasn't surprised. It was about 2 months into the year when he noticed the redness on the backs of Fred and George's hands and laid into them. "I told you two to be careful around her. What were you thinking?" "We're not doing our own detentions," George told him. "Well, one was our own, but we usually just take them for the little kids. First and second years have no business having to deal with that. No one should have to, but especially not the little ones. And just stand by knowing what she's doing to them." Harry sighed heavily and shook his head, plopping onto the couch between them. "I shouldn't be surprised. You did that last time too, just not until much later in the year. We must not have known what she was doing until then, because we never would have stood for it if we had. I don't think you did. It was around the time that you told Hermione the secret to the Murtlap to help me, so it makes sense. We're being careful, Harrikins." "Promise. I know. I'm sorry I yelled at you," Harry said with an apologetic smile. "I'm just so on edge. I figured it would be easier knowing what to expect, but it's not really. Why do you think we keep abducting you? You need to relax more. Have some fun. Play some pranks. Let your hair down. Not that you have much hair to let down. And even if you did, it would probably stick straight up." By that point, Harry was laughing, and the twins grinned at each other over his head. Mission accomplished. They kept him there for 2 hours before letting him out just after they'd originally abducted him next door. When Hermione came to him right after that with the idea to start the day, he agreed and would even be glad of it. This time, he didn't need Neville to find the room of requirement, but did wait until everyone signed the contract in the Hog's Head to show it to them. This time, the classes went even better. Harry had more experience teaching them, a better idea of the plan, and had a good idea of everyone's strengths and weaknesses already. Harry had pretended to have a few visions, but only in front of Ron and Hermione. There was no reason for the whole house to see him this time. That way, when his silent alarm pinged in his head the night before they left for break, he was taken seriously when he raised the warning about Mr. Weasley, and he and the Weasleys were rushed off to Grimmauld right out from under Umbridge's nose. When the twins looked worriedly at him, he tried to give them a reassuring look. He and Voldemort had coordinated on the timing down to the minute. It would be fine. When they got to St. Mungo's to see Arthur, both of the twins squeezed his shoulders in thanks. Even Harry could tell that even the bite itself wasn't nearly as bad as last time, and they'd mentioned that the healers were able to get an antidote for the venom. Last time, it had taken them a week to get that far. That meant that they didn't need to try the muggle stitches either. Harry's next letter to Tom included both his thanks and passed on from the twins. Unfortunately, the return letter pointed out that they were going to have to bring Snape in on the secret. Tom pointed out something that he'd realized. Telling Snape not to follow Dumbledore's orders was all well and good, but he would think that Harry still needed to learn occlumency for his own good, and if he didn't make an effort then his vow could come back and kill him. Before he could get around it, because Dumbledore convinced him that his way was for Harry's own good. Either way, Snape either had to be let in on the secret or let into Harry's head, where he would find fully formed occlumency shields and a mindscape. Having that get back to Dumbledore would be a nightmare. Chapter 21. Once he got the agreement from Harry, Voldemort called Snape. Barty was banished to the other side of the manor so as to keep the secret. Severus, rise, Voldemort said as the potion master knelt before him. I understand that Dumbledore has instructed you to give Harry Potter occlumency lessons. He noticed the brief surprise in Snape's eyes. Snape knew that Voldemort noticed and quickly said, I was just informed of the fact yesterday. He had fully intended to tell the Dark Lord about it during his next report. You're surprised that I found out so quickly, Voldemort guessed, getting a nod. That is why I called you here. You're not to follow the old bastard's orders to open the boy's mind. Snape was again shocked. No one had been present for that order except for himself and Dumbledore. You wish me to teach him correctly, then? He asked, confused. There is no need to teach him. Potter's occlumency is nearly as good as yours. I taught him myself last summer. My lord, Harry Potter is on my side. He has been since I was resurrected. We had a nice chat and reached an accord. That's why you had Black freed, Snape said distastefully. It is, Voldemort nodded. I will not order you to like him, nor will I order you to treat him any differently in public, but you will not use these lessons as an excuse to harass him. You will tell the old man that you're doing what he asked, but perhaps instead you could give him the remedial potions lessons that you will claim to the rest of the school. My lord, the boy is hopeless. He is not, Tom told him. He will never be a master, but he has the makings of quite the competent brewer should he be given a chance. How do you know this, my lord? Snape asked hesitantly. Because he and I have both traveled back in time to my resurrection. We were met by the Avatar of Death and had the errors of our ways pointed out. It was he who restored my sanity. The Harry Potter of the future only had a 6th-year education, but with a different potions teacher for his last year and found a real talent for the subject. You would be best served to spend your time with him brewing and perhaps even teaching. I will test the boy first, Snape said, his hatred for Harry overriding his fear of his lord. As you wish, Tom nodded. But I would also like to point out to you that the boy was raised in the Muggle world. Until this most recent summer, he was abused at the home of his relatives. Abused? Snape scoffed. Did you know that his first Hogwarts letter was addressed to the cupboard under the stairs? I myself spent quite a bit of time in his home over the summer teaching him and had a look at it myself. It was clearly a child's bedroom for many years. His current room, that he was moved to after that letter when his relatives believed they were being watched, has 6 locks on the outside of the door and a cat flap that they push meager amounts of food through once per day. Aside from his school uniform, he had never had clothing that fit him or that was bought for him, and I'm sure you know he bought the uniform himself. Then, why wouldn't he buy his own clothes if not for the attention? Snape tried to wrap his head around the facts he was being beat over the head with. He didn't dare call his lord a liar, because had his relatives seen them, they would have burned them, and known that he had money to purchase them and beaten him half to death until he gave them everything he had. They believe that the school provides the uniforms, books, and supplies. Dumbledore knows everything and left him there on purpose, just like he had left a young Tom Riddle to be mistreated in the orphanage. His plans are not in the boy's best interests. You are certain? Snape asked. The vow Dumbledore forced him to take was about to come back around against him. I am. The old bastard thinks that the boy is my Horcrux. He is raising him to die. But he's not. Your Horcrux, I mean. He is not. Tom nodded. It was the Horcruxes that deprived me of my sanity. They no longer exist, and Dumbledore set the whole thing up. I beg your pardon. Dumbledore intentionally left a book in the Hogwarts library describing them and how to make them. One of the only books that did not mention the fact that they do not work and that they cause mental instability. He then instructed Slughorn not to tell me those things either. The Horcruxes could possess people and possibly even create their own body with a living sacrifice, but would not anchor his primary soul, and they could be killed just as easily as anyone else. His plan was to keep me from making the necessary changes to the world and give himself more clout by killing another Dark Lord. I see, Snape said dangerously. That meant that it was Dumbledore at fault for Lily's death, just like he was at fault for giving her to James. And the boy, Potter, he is on your side now. You are no threat to him. What of the prophecy? The prophecy referred to either me or the old man. Death gave us the full thing. It was to Harry to choose which of us to kill and which to ally with. He attempted to take the choice away from him. He has now chosen. He will stand with me, and we will kill the old man, but not for another year and a half. Why so long, my lord, if I may ask? Voldemort knew that Snape was finally truly his now. If he hadn't figured out that his insanity was engineered by Dumbledore, he likely wouldn't have taken this risk, but now there was nothing tying Severus to him any longer. Thus he had no problem answering, not that he would tell him everything, because he is as immortal as Potter and I are, protected by the same prophecy. To kill him requires exactly the right confluence of events, and the only one we are sure will work is the one that did last time. I understand, my lord, Snape bowed. I will speak with the boy, test him, see if I can manage to work with him in this. It may help you to know that he knows the truth now, about his father's treachery. And he despises the man as much as you do. I had to talk him out of renouncing the name of Potter and taking his mother's name instead. He knows that he should have been yours and understands why you hate him so. Snape had no idea how to react to that, to rage that the boy knew his secrets, to be grateful to be understood, to be glad that the spawn of his enemy had turned against his father. Instead, he just said nothing, and Voldemort soon dismissed him. Once he returned and gave the obligatory report to Dumbledore, which included nothing of substance, he returned to his rooms. He took a rare opportunity to get blind drunk before having to face everything that he'd learned in the last few hours. It had been difficult not to kill the old man where he sat, but if the Dark Lord was right, it wouldn't have worked, and he would have found himself dead instead. He only hoped that, when the time came, he would be able and allowed to play a part in the bastard's demise. Once Snape left, Voldemort remained on his throne, listening. Levitating the disc into the potion master's pocket without being noticed wasn't easy, but if it worked as advertised, he would owe the Weasley twins thanks. Since it was meant as a prank, it would only last a couple hours and then disappear without a trace, but even that much was helpful, and he was sure that they would be able to make it last longer if requested. It just hadn't suited their purposes to do so. He would never admit it out loud, but even in the last timeline, he had recognized their genius, and now it was on his side. Thanks to the device, Voldemort heard every word that the potion's master told Dumbledore and was glad that he wouldn't have to kill him. He also heard every word of his drunken rant in his quarters afterwards and knew that he would never need concern himself with the man's loyalty again. And Harry would owe him for getting the man off his back and even getting him better potions tuition. It was a win-win for everyone, except Dumbledore, of course. But that man would lose far more before they were done.